Right, let's turn to this now. Corporate Governance Minister Thembi Nkadimeng says apartheid spatial planning is difficult to reverse. She made the comments while delivering keynote address at the Salga National Members Assembly this morning. The minister is with us now to expand a little bit on that and more. Good evening, Minister. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, and good evening to our viewers.
I know you touched on service delivery, water, sanitation, electricity, councillor welfare, and so on and so forth. We'll circle to those issues. But what, for me, was particularly standing out in this was that big banner at the back, which was written 25 years after the white paper on local governance. So I went back to it and I said, 25 years ago, what did you envisage would be the role, the function of local government, and how these institutions would actually look like, and when you look 25 years on, and whether it looks like that, right? One would say, right, if we look at the number of things that we're talking about, 77 lives that were lost because buildings were hijacked and the city lost control of the building, was leased to the province. It was just a mess. We don't know who owns it and whatever, but ultimately it was hijacked and people died there. So that says to me, institutions or institutional systems that are meant to serve the needs of the people are not doing what they were meant to do. So when you look at metropolitan governments, when you look at district governments, when you look at traditional leadership, is what you see now what you envisaged in 1998 in that white paper?
Well, partially achieved, I could confidently say so. The intention of local government through its white paper in 1998 was to create developmental local government. Yeah. One, it was to ensure that municipalities are incorporated to be able to service its communities equitably and in a sustainable manner. You will recall, we had white local authorities and black local authorities. In colored areas, they had their own. So we moved from constructing a local government system which shrunk from 874 municipalities of the time to putting them to 278.
Yeah.
Subsequently, of course, to the move down to 257 that we have today. That is as a result of the demarcation port system. So the new local government system was put up in place, as you articulated, you might have seen. Then there's municipal demarcation, which do the rounds in systems every 5 years to ensure that we're demarcated. And secondly, we demarcated the country into each and every ward. Whether you're in a farm, that farm is located within a particular ward or even wards in some instances. Now, we then looked into bridging the gap of the provision of services. Yeah. We were moving from about 38% of access to Africans on energy and electricity provision. Today we're sitting at about 93%. Yes, we may be having challenges of load shedding. In fact, thoroughly looked at is the success of the government program called Inep, which is Integrated National Electrification Program, which gives a grant to municipalities to electrify its communities, both in rural, small towns. Little urban areas did not have electricity, even in the pre-dispensation. I mean, there was electricity in Guatemala. Yeah. It might have been isolated in some few other areas. But in Mkanduli, there was nothing. You will walk in the darkness. And today, there is that provision. Yeah. We moved in less than 40% into water provision. And statistics begin to show an increase. Of course, broken down into different categories. It could be a tap in your house. It could be a tap that is communal. It could be a tap that is within a strategic area and delivery of water into those services. So moving the bar.
Moving the bar, yes. I'd accept. But some of the key factors, though, that would have been highlighted in that white paper as to what municipal institutions should be able to do is the very same thing that you're complaining about today. Spatial planning, right? The white paper says the legacy of colonial separation should have been addressed.
And the hope is
25 years ago. So
and the hope is that 25 years later, we
still have not done that. It means we have not done what that white paper was.
Let's rehash the example of a deputy minister who was the mayor of Johannesburg at the time, who developed Waterfall. You think it doesn't come from the planning spatial of the city of Johannesburg? These developers were not supported. They just fell on air and develop Waterfall. And it's not in only those areas. I've been a mayor of Polokwane, the growth that has been seen and shown from Polokwane of people moving from the periphery into the center of town increased.
Yeah.
From a mere 12% pre-dispensation to around 80% in town now.
Yeah.
People have moved willingly to get to register.
One or two,
no, it's not one or two.
Urban high-density
Look at the
security areas like waterfalls.
No. Municipality. No. That will be a wrong. Let's look at Soweto. Soweto's roads prior dispensation, all of them were not tarred. How is Soweto today?
Right.
Mayor Amos Masondo actually started by tarring the first road in Soweto.
Right.
Right? What was happening in Tanzania? The post-dispensation. The question is, you still have difficulties.
To go into inner city spaces,
who wants to go into inner city? Well, yes.
This is why
the issue is about the economy.
Established in
the issue is about the economy, ensuring that it gets to where the people are. So you can't move Soweto and its millions into the central city of Johannesburg. But you can ensure that there's integrated transport, which is there. There's Rea Vaya, which has been instituted by the municipality to ferry them. At an even lesser case, there's Department of Transport that is running its bus management system as well to ferry people up. Do we plan closer to where people are? Yes. We've created urban edges.
Yes.
We do have difficulties. Beresford is one.
Right.
The spatial development framework, because of the type of the municipality and how it is, it's difficult to break.
Right.
But it does not mean it's not. They are developing, for example, a special zone economically to ensure that they enhance the growth of that town closer
what are the
city.
lingering effects of spatial planning that you are lamenting?
Look, the issue is that you would have wanted more progress on what you have already set as a foundation to get a developmental local government. But to say there has been no movement, that's not what my speech is saying. It actually argues the acceleration and the difficulties. Look at Bushbuck Ridge.
Yes.
You've got to, there was never a town there.
Yes.
And people were settled, actually, to be transported to save his as a view as a small town.
Yeah.
And
but
what are we doing
look at
now?
Bushbuck Ridge and other such towns like that.
Thulamela, for example, in Thohoyandou.
If we listen to the president of Salga earlier on in the conversation that he has, he himself is lamenting the uneven distribution.
Maybe the lament is not the right
municipal capacity.
It's not the right way.
And he, of course, bringing it down to the fact that maybe it's how much you're paying people. So you are not paying engineers properly. So
well, he was articulating
in urban areas will be paying more.
Yes, because of our grading system, which is another matter. Maybe we could touch on it if we get time later.
That is the question that, yes, you could have developed those houses or those dwellings in those areas, but they are unevenly capacitated when it comes to what they are able to deliver in terms of services.
No, Thabo. You also have got to understand the structure of delivery of local government. For example, the building of houses is a non-delegated function to municipalities except metros. Our key responsibility is to identify land for human settlement and beneficiaries so that they can build on their behalf.
Yes.
And if you look into a city of eThekwini, for example, almost all the land parcels inside and in the city are either in the private hands or the city has exhausted all its land parcels.
Yes.
Restituting and settling people into the city inside.
Yeah.
So which is what is the spatial? No, how are they going to get extra land?
Yes.
We wanted to relocate the flood, who are on the flood lines. And the city has been struggling with the land parcel because communities feel the parcel that is available is a bit out. Those are difficulties and challenges.
So when the white paper said metropolitan governments, right?
Yes.
Key function is to the transformational and developmental role in building viable human settlements. In simple English, what was expected to have been the role of metropolitan governments?
Well, it meant they need to move people far away from, move people closer from far-flung areas to connect, also ensure that there's transportation. Look at the people of Moloto, who actually wake up every day and get into a bus at 4 o'clock to travel to Pretoria because of where the economy is. And it secondly meant that as municipalities, we must develop our localities to generate and create industry so that those people don't have to shuttle. In that instance, we also, in partnership with national government, has to build either national road, provides water, provides services to make the life equitable to the people, but also create new towns, which is what the president has pronounced on.
You are saying that the fact that there are still people who shuttle from Moloto to Pretoria every day, waking up at 4 a.m., is not an indication of failure. It's an indication of part.
Where are they shuttling from? How are they shuttling?
But
there no road
it surely cannot be that we can live and accept the fact that we are going to shuttle for 4 or 5 hours a day.
It can't be an expectation that we are expecting that the municipality of Nkangala won't exist. They will move the people off.
I'm asking, when you were thinking of transformational and developmental
but
road,
the forefathers
what were you
thinking
about?
That the development of the people needs to be equitable and equal in areas where they are. How about those who want to stay in small towns, by the way, and they don't want to live out of Moloto?
And they should be able to have economic zones in those areas. That's what
I'm talking about, that we have to create those locals and industries that they are absorbed and be able to work where they choose to stay. But we can't overemphasize a right of spatial development, which says primarily you have a right to stay where you want to stay. And that was the first right of spatial development. So that has been created
you've gathered your national members from everywhere in local government. They are assembled there in Pretoria. What do you want them to talk about, especially when it comes to that transformational and developmental role?
Well, they are talking about provision of basic services, which my speech has gone at length into saying what we have achieved, what are our challenges, and what do we foresee the future to be continuing to the next 25 years. But we are seeing a future which, one, emphasizes the history and a reminder of where we come from in the 25 years, what have we achieved. We have shortcomings, but we have achieved a lot as well. And that needs to be appreciated. But it does not mean we have to sleep and say all the job is done. What are the current challenges that we are facing today is to ensure that the continuation of services is even accelerated more. I went on to even, for example, to say to municipalities, for us to turn back a rand back into the fiscus and not spend it in a way that is investable into those communities. It's something we really need to look closely into. Because we want to begin to look into the argument that the president of Salga is raising as well, to say, one, there are issues in municipalities that are graded low and we need to pay them, and we need to grade them properly so that they get more pay, so that they could attract the skills. It may sound very light and easy that municipalities are unable to attract skill, but it's a fact. In our current
it is affecting our country. I was speaking to the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, and he himself is lamenting the question of, maybe you don't want me to use that word, but he, of course, says the reason why Rand Water and the city of Tshwane are fighting, they've come in and they've assessed, part of the technical team assessment is the fact that the city cannot manage its water rationing properly. Yes, and that speaks to skill, that there's a lack of skill.
The lament comes in as if there is nothing that is being done. You can use the word, you are in your studio, you're protected to use any word you want to use. But what I'm trying to say here is that government is in action in all the areas which needs to be provided with services. Whether it's water. In fact, we are even applying jointly with water and sanitation, Section 63 of the Water Act, which now allows the minister and deputy ministers to walk into a municipality and assist in unbundling and assisting them in planning and managing their wastewater treatment plants, etc., to provide good blue drop and green drop potable water that needs to be going to the people.
So what's the conversation around the incentives? Because we can sit again 2025 again and say there are no incentives for skilled staff to work in rural and small towns. That is something that you identified 25 years ago.
No, it's not true.
It's in the white paper.
No,
it was identified in the white paper 25
years. It
was identified in the 1998 white paper.
You can't rewrite
No. I've read it. It says This is what it says. Let me read for you what it says. It says, municipal institutions must be assessed in the context of our specific circumstances. And then it goes on, it says, what are our specific circumstances right now? What do the people need? And then it outlines this. It says there are no incentives for skilled staff to work in rural and small towns. That was a situation that existed then. It's a situation that is existing now.
Continue to read below there. It then directs on how the municipalities must be graded, remunerated.
Right.
And that's the grading. And introduce the remunerations committee, which looks into the grading of those municipalities equal to their
So
pay.
that means the
system
that you introduced did not address the problem that you had identified.
What we are doing now is to ensure that because there has been growth and changes and development in municipalities, some have benefited, some have not benefited in terms of the growth that is directed mainly by migration, choices of business and industries where to invest. And some became, for example, what you will call ghost towns now, because the economic model would have moved to ensure that we incentivize. So it's not that we are not doing anything. We have put their fiscal framework review of municipal structure into the table, which is part of what they are discussing now, to ensure that you remunerate equally, you close the gap so that municipalities could be able to even attract the skills. In fact,
my director is lamenting. He says we must take a break. So let me take a break.
Give me a break.
Before they
I think
I'll come back to you in just a moment. Right, you can weigh in on our conversation tonight. 072-110-584. Send us a message on X at Newzroom4054, the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. We'll continue after this. Cooperative Governance Minister Thembi Nkadimeng still with us in the studio. They are gathered in a Birchwood. She was delivering the keynote address earlier on, citing a number of issues. Let's talk about councillor welfare. I mean, that would sound like councillors are really having a terrible time in council. That we need to be looking after them a little bit more, even though others believe that councillors are actually well remunerated for the work that they do. But here's the thing. The Tshwane municipality, for example, has missed its submission of financial statements to the Auditor General, right? Now the APC, the Independent Audit Committee, says part of the reason, or people who should be blamed, are actually every single councillor that is in that council that does not read the reports. Hence, we get poor audit outcomes for municipalities. Are councillors doing their? Do they read those? Can they read them? Do they look at the budget? Can they see a funded budget and an unfunded budget?
They do, and we get assistance also from National Treasury. So we have a process on ultimately how a budget gets to be approved. And in some instances, we even highlight, even prior to the adoption, that please don't adopt. This is unfunded, it doesn't balance. But we must also accept to you that, I mean, as my speech mentioned, over 32 municipalities are even unable to pay their salaries currently as we talk. So the financial situation really needs to be looked at too closely. So that's what informs the fiscal review. Right. Because it comes mainly from the very same white paper which said 90% of what tops up the grant should be coming from the own revenue of council, which means me and you must pay for the services that we are receiving.
So exactly.
Of which there are many factors.
Let's go back to that. So when the white paper said increase economic competitiveness and viability and harness concentrated capacity and investment, that's what it was talking about. What did you want them to do?
No, yes. It assumed, it's an assumption. It assumed that people, the economy will be active, people will be working, and they will be paying for their services. Now, if you talk of a highest level of unemployment, where are those people residing? In a what? Can the municipality, with stringent policies, refuse them access to water and electricity? They do. When they do that, there's illegal connections. And still, the rise in a debt of either water and electricity that has been connected illegally. So what do we have to do collectively is to change the economic strata. Yes, at the local economic level, in the municipalities, in the provincial space, and at the national space, jointly to ensure that the economy accommodates. Does government and that white paper has means and measures to accommodate those who, even there is availability of work, will not be able to work for various reasons? Maybe they are old, they are elders. There is indigent policy, there's free basic services. But we are experiencing free basic services and its access shooting up in municipalities because of the increase of unemployment and people who are unable to service those municipalities.
Well, in some instances,
which means
it's people who work for the municipality who are also
of course, the billing
getting the
system we need to accept needs to be enhanced as well to assist the collection, to assist the free basic services. The indigent register need to be credible, and there are programs, both Salga and CoGTA are running to ensure that we cover that space. But also the municipality must carry a responsibility of sharing, of showing that it collects. But it's not all a level playing field. Informal settlements are cropping up. If you protect the land of the municipality and government, they are cropping up even on public land, on private-owned land, where they are walking. And what do they do? Into the main pipeline that crosses under the servitude people illegally connect. So there are pros and cons directly which affect local municipalities on the basis of how the situation and the economy of the country is. It can't be stated less or more enough. So we've got to be responsive and agile as municipalities as we respond. But we equally, as citizens, have to be accommodative and understanding. I haven't even spoken about theft and vandalism of municipal infrastructure, where we invest, but in 2 weeks' time that investment can't even be accounted for. The very same people we wanted to give and provide water for, a pump and whatever has already been stolen and circulated.
We're removing pavement there in my area.
Yeah, people are even going to an extent of removing robots. And citizens in South Africa will rather take a video clip and circulate it, maybe out of fear, understandably, that you may not be able to boldly approach a person you aren't even sure on how to deal with. But what I'm saying is, even this vandalism is in front of our eyes, and we all as communities, and that is why local government is a three-legged pot. The communities plays a vital role beyond the participation.
That's the white paper. Now, you are mentioning all these things that are in the white paper.
That's what we were talking about.
The white paper says we must ensure that there are diverse voices within the municipal system. How are we ensuring that is happening?
There's an IDP, which CoGTA reviews.
This IDP, we hear them all along, all the time. The IDPs.
It's a government system, and it can be.
How true is it that the inputs of communities are being genuinely addressed?
They are genuinely addressed.
Because communities come here, obviously, and they say, well, we went and participated, but none of our submissions were actually
Remember, Thabo, there has to be. Then council is tasked with the responsibility of prioritizing. Council doesn't have a bag full of money, even if they don't have debts or
councillors,
anything.
by the way, Speaker of City of Johannesburg says those people don't show up. The register is very poor. Even the mayor, they said he only attended 2.
Attended 2 IDP meetings. They have to deal with that. That speaker has to deal with that problem. In fact, the Amendment Structures Act places key responsibilities to the speaker. That's the amendment which has been done and signed by the president in November. Right? So it's no longer a situation where we could all complain. We all have to carry our responsibility. We also have amended the area of which deals with the Public Audit Act, which is, committees, MPECs. And we have also capacitated them. We've trained all the MPECs through Salga in the country to ensure that they carry oversight and carry MPEC report through the speaker to council, and the Auditor General must review them. So we have improved even on the law and policies to ensure that these services do reach our people, and on the other hand, there is accountability. So it can't be that a speaker says, my mayor doesn't attend. She puts a program, the mayor must be able to attend. If the mayor doesn't attend, what is council? Remember, this is a mayor of councillors. Also, elected by the same council. The president was in parliament today on an invitation of National Assembly to come and respond to questions. So he can't say I can't come.
But here's the situation.
The mayor, the same thing.
Here's the situation that we're dealing with now. We are dealing with, I know the President Salga said there are 51 other coalitions that we are not mentioning. We are maybe looking at the 36 or 26 that are dysfunctional.
Yeah. No, it's 66.
66, yes. And he says there are a whole lot more that we are not looking at currently. So we are dealing with the situation of coalition governments, and those seem to be affecting the governing system.
Well, I wouldn't say the biasness towards the metros in terms of looking as a lens for stability or instability caused by coalition is a wrong decision. It could be a correct decision precisely because almost 50% of our population reside in metros. So if we can't get stability in our metros, it means we have got almost 50% of our citizens, actually at around 45% combined, all the 8 metros. That's what they give us. Because the next that is the 37 intermediary cities, your Polokwane, your Msunduzi, your Mhlatuze, Richards Bay, whatever. Then you get into the small municipalities. Yeah. So we carry a responsibility to get them right. But also, what is our DDM model? Is anchored on metros and districts. Because one, it is easy for them to even get the capacity, to even get the collection through industries. So if we fail at our metro level, my belief is that it will even be worse at a small rural municipality, which struggles even with collection. Yes, there will still be a debt in the city of Johannesburg or Eguruleni or Tshwane, because they also deal with issues of informal settlements, migration at a very 5% and above, which negates the small municipality problems into what metros deal with. But we've got to get them right, because from a capacity level, they could be able to attract properly, they can be able to pay. They actually are not waiting even for the review. Now you see a trend that they are failing to spend because of instability. For example, Nelson Mandela Bay, right, in the last 5 years of local government term, 2016 to 2021, they turned back all the human settlement allocation. Does it mean there are no beneficiaries who deserve to have houses? You Surely know not. Very well it's not the case. So instability was a problem there. What are you saying the audit committee is saying with regard to the review and their report to council, which unfortunately couldn't conclude its business? By the way, on Thursday, due to non-adherence to the code of conduct, they were fighting, they were on top of tables, they were doing all, and it's a criminal offense. We have already moved into the space as CoGTA to say we can't not allow the decorum of the House in council to sit. So there is a balance really in terms of policy, legislation, regulation, implementation, and how and what will be the way forward.
Let's talk about that balance and the safety and security, especially if you look at KwaZulu-Natal and the councillor safety and the welfare in particular with the killings that are going on there. How do you address that?
Upper limits, which have also been issued for this financial year on the 18th of August, does, and not for the first time, repeatedly, I think 4 or 5 years back, have been able to allow council to take a decision and a resolution, pass it on to SAPS to assess you as a public representative and give an assessment as to whether you need, there is a threat, really, and council could be able to procure services of security to protect its public representative. Now, the move could be, I know there are some councillors who, in the process of the assessment, have been killed. Some, after the assessment has been conducted, there's a high level of crime, of which ourselves as a municipality have to play a role in ensuring that in the spaces that we use community safety to assist the police, to manage the areas, to create the object of local government number 4, which says create social, economic, and livable environment in cities and towns that you are managing. So it's quite a number of key stakeholders that plays a role. But there's no gap which says councillors are unable through their councils to get protection on what the state could be able to do. So we do this in each and every year to ensure that we ensure the safety of councillors.
All right, back live with you. Let's wrap up our conversation now. Cooperative Governance Minister Thembi Nkadimeng still with us tonight. So one of the issues that has come up, and again, we are a country when there's a tragedy, then we kind of bring these issues up, is the question of town planning and whether or not there is such a function and it is doing what it's supposed to do. The white paper says metros in particular, why we need to have metros. One, to promote strategic land use planning and coordinate public investment in physical and social infrastructure. Do we have town planning? Is it doing what it's supposed to be doing?
We do. They are trying to do what they're supposed to. Of course, metros in particular, you need to juxtapose what they're doing with the above 5% migration that comes from small cities, small towns, rural areas, into key suburban areas, and even the migration or the movement of people and who bring skills into the country. They are usually attracted into metros and bigger areas. And of course, some whom we have found a word which is not necessarily correct, who move into the country not following the processes of what they're supposed to be. Where are they? In these hijacked buildings, in informal settlements that do illegal connections. Is it possible to plan at a fast pace with those? Yes, you may find that the municipality has got so many approved settlements, but they do not have sufficient park infrastructure to ensure that housing and any other formalization of settlements happens on time in comparison to the people who are moving there. So to say it is absent is not necessarily the picture, but I appreciate that we constantly struggle to match the pace of the growth that is demanded by people even when they give their views through the IDP. So it's not that the IDP is not existent. There could be isolated instances, but I know because we review IDPs at CoGTA, and most of them, over 90%, are to the point are aligned. Are they able to cover everything? Because we force them to write everything that has been said to an extent of recording those sittings, because the AG also asked for that in the application of their own audit process.
Right.
You find that the needs of the community exceeds, their expectation exceeds the ability of the municipality, particularly when it comes to funding. Because yes, we may not be spending 100%, but our MIG is at 89% spent. Yeah. Which means, what are we talking about here? We are only saying our municipalities have been unable, in the past financial year, for example, to spend only 11%. Yeah. Not that I'm saying 11% is not important. Right. They must continue not to spend it. Yes, it's important for us to be at 100% spent. But to say we are non-existent, we are giving the support, and we are unable to move a finger as municipalities is not a precise story.
Let's talk about that a little bit more in the context of delivering housing, right? The minister of, not the minister, MEC for Human Settlements in Gauteng says no, the building of social housing and whatever else is a delegated responsibility. We delegated that to the city. When you speak to the city, it says, yeah, it's delegated, but the budget that you get for it could probably, at best, deliver 20,000 units a year.
When
you have a need of 1 million in a backlog.
That's the point that I'm trying to make. That the expectation, the conditions that municipalities find themselves with regard to either delivery of water, delivery of roads, waste collection, human settlement, etc., the need exceeds the availability or the resources that are in the pocket of the municipality, whether they are 100% spent.
Yes.
So it's not an issue of whether the function has been non-delegated or delegated, but just across the functions of what municipalities are supposed to do, there is that imbalance. There's always a challenge and a problem. For example, in something that we look as menial waste collection. Do you collect in an informal settlement that has not been approved by the city? Maybe a human rights answer should be yes.
Yes.
But does the municipality have the resources of a settlement that has not been approved? No. So what do they try to do? They try in all possible instances to squeeze within what they have in waste collection to fit everybody else, while ensuring that you ratepayer are serviced and your waste is collected.
Yeah, but does that not
so they create
in
rural
poor service delivery?
No, well, yes, it will automatically, and that is why I'm seeking.
It's not completely not there, but even if it's there, it's poorly managed.
That is why I'm saying it's not poorly managed. That's why I'm saying let's look at it very well. You have got an informal settlement in a private land. Don't even categorize who's sitting there. It's people, it's human beings, which your constitution says water is life.
Yeah.
They are going to connect illegally. The municipality is going to make losses. You want to provide houses in this instance of an example that you are making. You've got to cover the population of the people who are your citizens in that municipality. One, your equitable share, which is on the basis of the calculation of states and census, obviously it's imbalanced. There are those who are counted and those who are not counted in your city. And your allocation, therefore, is not sufficient to meet everybody else who's on the ground. So migration brings its own challenges to cities. How many people are backroom or backyard dwellers? If you want to eradicate that, how much will it cost the city of Johannesburg, as an example, or eThekwini or everybody else to be able to eradicate? So the understanding and an appreciation in our messaging in local government is what needs to be understood even by our communities as well. That there are disparities in everything that we are trying to do to cover and ensure that you get a service. And that is why we tried to move toward based planning. To say even if we may not be delivering each and every service in every ward, but we need to be touching that ward in one way or the other. Give them a road, give them water. Maybe in the other areas, you will also be able to ensure that you touch on other amenities. It could be building of a school, and that is why one planning of government or building of a police station or whatever, to give the services global into that municipalities. Otherwise, our needs as a community exceeds what local government can be able to offer. Minister, but we soldier on.
Matters of local government can never be completely exhausted, as you know, but of course time always the enemy. I appreciate you coming. That's the Minister of Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs there, Thembi Nkadimeng.